Claressa Shields goes up against Christina Hammer for the undisputed middleweight championship of the world. That's Saturday, April 13th. It's at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, and it's broadcast live on Showtime. We're here at the press conference for Claressa Shields. She's going to be going up against Christina Hammer. It's for the undisputed women's middleweight championship of the world. With us is Eddie Goldman from No Holds Barred, and he is going to tell us what do you think of this fight, and what way do you think it'll go? We have two very confident women here.
Yeah, they're both undefeated. They both hold two belts at middleweight. They've held belts at 168. And if you compare the two, you have to understand the state of women's boxing. It's much newer than men's boxing on a professional level. Claressa Shields has 2 Olympic gold medals, but it was only added to the Olympics in 2008 in Beijing. The last Olympic sport, by the way, to have both a men's and women's division. So since that time, you started to see a number of these Olympic medalists turn pro. The women's boxing has grown. More people are training. More people are getting into the professional ranks. And the talent pool is growing, but it's not at the level overall of men's boxing. So this is really a very important fight to move things forward. It's headlining a card in Atlantic City. It's headlining a show on Showtime. The winner, assuming there's not a draw or something, will hold all 4 of the major belts. And it's very rare in boxing because of all the stuff with the sanctioning bodies for anybody to hold all 4 of the WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO belts. And right now there's only one fighter, and maybe only temporary, that he has it. Alexander Usyk has all the 4 cruiserweight belts, which he won during the World Boxing Super Series, but he's moving up to heavyweight. So when he moves up to heavyweight, somebody else is going to fight for the cruiserweight belts. And this is an important fight to start to put women's boxing on the map. And it's different from some of the earlier fights where you had, which were very important to women's boxing. Layla Ali versus Jackie Fraser-Lyde was like a celebrity fight with the daughter of Muhammad Ali versus the daughter of Joe Frazier. And you had some attempts at creating big fights that didn't pan out. Layla Ali versus Ann Wolfe, both of whom are retired as fighters now. And Layla Ali, who I really liked as a fighter, is pretty much out of boxing, doing TV and celebrity stuff and all of that. And Ann Wolfe is a trainer now. And you wanted to have at one point Christy Martin versus Lucia Riker. That didn't happen. Lucia Riker got injured, retired undefeated, and hasn't been boxing. A tremendously talented athlete. So some of these things didn't take place. There were questions, were they going to sell enough tickets? And with the whole development of these fighters now coming up through the amateur ranks and turning pro, we now start to have, as I mentioned, Claressa Shields, Katie Taylor, Cecilia Brækhus, and you have Nicola Adams, another 2-time Olympic gold medalist, Amanda Serrano, and many, many others that you could name. And of course, Christina Hammer, who's undefeated, mainly fighting in Europe. So we're going to see how good these two are. And Christina Hammer, as you probably saw from the interviews, is taller than Claressa Shields, has a greater reach, is a little bit older, and both undefeated and more experienced as a pro. And the question in terms of power, they're both claiming to have better power. Claressa Shields is in her 8 pro fights. She has a couple of stoppages, but has never scored a clean knockdown, let alone a knockout. And Christina Hammer has. But it's a question of level of opposition. And that's sort of the unknown factor. How they're going to do against each other, or what level are these two, despite all the accolades and belts and undefeated records, how do they match up against one another? The other factor in women's boxing is that what's accepted in most places, and a lot of people disagree with this, is that women's boxing will have 10 rounds for a championship fight of 2 minutes each, which means they're fighting a total of 20 minutes rather than your 36, maximum of 36 minutes in men's boxing. And there are different schools of thought on this, but those are the rules for this particular fight. So there's a great chance this could go to a decision. And if it's a close fight, especially again after 10 rounds, 2 minutes apiece, this is going to be in New Jersey. And I have a lot of respect for the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board, Larry Hazard, and people that are involved in that. Claressa Shields is an American from Flint, Michigan. Christina Hammer is from Germany. The vast majority of the fans are going to be rooting for Claressa Shields. Will there be if it goes to the distance, will there be a fair decision? And I hope that if it does go, I don't know if it's going to go the distance, but I think there's a pretty good chance this fight goes the full 10 rounds. I just hope that the best woman wins the fight, the one who deserves to win, rather than what we've seen many times in boxing, these really cockamamie decisions that look political or make no sense. So that said, it's kind of hard to predict. Both, of course, are predicting victory. Both are very confident in the fight. I think you're going to, my feeling is that Claressa Shields is going to try to start very fast and try to get inside, fight on the inside. Christina Hammer, we'll see what her game plan is. And of course, the old Mike Tyson line, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the head.
I like that.
So,
and right. Emmanuel Stewart, though, he always says, never leave it to the cards. But as you said, with the 2-minute rounds and 10 rounds, it makes it hard for the knockout just because the time limitations.
Yeah, it makes it harder, but there have been a lot of women's fights where there have been knockouts. So the question of effective power is something that has to be examined, and the level of opponents. We're going to find out a lot about these two. But as I said, I think this is a very important fight for women's boxing. A lot of people are saying, yes, it's an important fight for boxing. This is true, and it should be seen as that. But particularly, it's a step-up fight for women's boxing, where a lot of people, they're each accused each other of having padded records, of fighting easy opponents. Well, they can't say that anymore, to whatever degree there was truth in that. You have really at this point in those weight classes, the two fighters that are the best fighting the best, which is also a rarity in boxing. So we're going to see what happens on April 13th.
April 13th, Atlantic City, right on our coast. Once again, Eddie Goldman, no holds barred, and one of my colleague, and always love to have you on the show. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Thank you. And I'm Kristal Hart reporting from New York City. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the fights.